Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to Colney for this afternoon's presser. No, I'm not. I'm not in Colney. I am in Norwich, though. Welcome to this afternoon's presser with me. I will be previewing the non-existent football match that's taking place for Norwich City. I hope you're all very well. Yeah, poor joke. Apologies, but I figured no press conference. It'd be a decent time to do a half an hour Q&A. Given maybe we're in the routine of doing this, maybe this is just as much for me as it is you. I don't know, but I'm enjoying the multiple streaming at the moment, so I figured we would make the most of that once again. So I am live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you for joining me. If you're watching, much appreciated. Feel free to ask anything you want. Go for it. It's been an interesting week. I feel like we're properly into the end of the season in terms of Norwich City, but also fast forwarding to what next season looks like and beyond, of course, as you will have seen from a lot of the stuff that came out yesterday. Loads of that to discuss. Obviously, we're getting some of the Euro squad starting to filter through and bits and pieces there too. So still plenty to talk about. If you are watching on YouTube, feel free to subscribe. If you're watching on Twitter, feel free to follow. And if you're watching on Facebook, feel free to do whatever that involves. Like my page, and join in. I plan to be here for around half an hour, which I'm going to signify with this. Don't just throw this together. Obviously, when I did YouTube school, one thing they definitely said don't do was eat beans on toast just before you go live. Little insight for you. That is just what I've done because my little boy didn't eat it. So I'm high on beans, high on life. Welcome to the summer. Yeah, so you've got all that to do. And I should probably also flag up at this point. There you go. Subscribe to The Athletic. There's loads of stuff on there. Really good piece from Pete on Fulham, which is an interesting case at the moment. Ryan and Matt Slater have done some incredible work on Derby. I mean, okay, Norwich City aren't perfect, but if you just look at some of the other clubs, you're like, wouldn't do it like that. So we can obviously reflect on that if we so wish to. Let me know how your days are going and your weekends. No Norwich City this weekend, obviously. So I'm quite interested to know how you'll be spending your weekend. I'm probably going to play a little bit of football with one of my boys. And other than that, I don't know. I have to think of something. I'm sure I won't have any issues with free time. But yeah, go for it. Let me know what your weekend will consist of, and we can all look forward to the forthcoming couple of days. So that'll be grand. But yeah, get any questions in whichever platform you're watching in, and I will endeavor to get through as many of them as possible over the forthcoming half an hour, which is what that says, of course. And I'm enjoying it. Yeah, and you know, discuss things amongst yourselves if you so wish. This is effectively your stream as much as it is mine, so I consider it a public duty. Which is obviously how it should be. I was quite lonely in my study, got to be honest. So this is a good way of at least engaging with people and keeping myself engaged with people here and there. So yeah, I'm going to stop rambling now because that's literally just wasting time, and I ran out of time last time to get through all the questions, and there will be loads because there are normally far more than I anticipate. So let's crack on, shall we, with hello Stephen, nice to see you. What we got here, considering the areas in which he plays and his output, should we consider Dow more of a second striker than an attacking midfielder? Does this bring Ida into the mix as competition next year? Well, I think Adam Ida is definitely someone who will be in the mix next season. Now, unless some of the recruitment alters that dynamic, I think they look at him, and fairly, I would say, in terms of the fact he got a bit of Premier League experience at the end of last season in ridiculous circumstances. I don't feel this year is a fair year to judge Adam Ida because it's just been a kind of a lost season through so many different scenarios. I mean, completely not his fault in terms of what happened with him over in Ireland on international duty, which on 2 counts kind of scuppered his fitness for a good period. Then there was COVID. Then there was another injury. Obviously, the sending off was kind of unfortunate and a bit stupid, but one of those kind of things where you're like, that's just a bit unnecessary, really, probably on all counts. So through all kinds of manners, he's had a tricky season, but there was just enough. There was enough in him coming on against Barnsley to think, okay, I can see the spark you've got there. So I can understand the faith they would have in him if he can get a really good preseason under him and really look the part going into next season. You know, he needs to do what Todd Cantwell did really ahead of the last Premier League campaign and look on it, work on himself and get himself ready. And I think then he has a really, really big opportunity. So yeah, that's how I see that. Kieran Dowell, obviously, I've had 2 quite lengthy conversations, mostly with Hodgie, but it's come up on the Canary Cast pod I did, and also on the ball, where people are looking at Kieran Dowell thinking, well, we still need some strengthening in number 10. And while I can kind of appreciate where that might come, to look at that as something that Norwich are going to do when there are so many more pressing issues on the pitch, just think it's unrealistic. I think Kieran will drift through games, but he will also impact them when he nails it. So and more consistently than maybe some others have done in that position. So it will be interesting how Daniel utilizes him. But for me, I think Kieran is going to be one of the kind of important cogs in next season, and I think he's earned that chance at the start of the campaign, at least. So I whether that actually alter. I mean, I don't like the idea of Norwich drifting into a 4-4-1-1 because I think strikers become isolated, and that doesn't necessarily work with how Norwich want to do things. A 4-1-4-1 potentially, but second striker maybe in a 3-5-2 if they're going to go 3 at the back, which I know that they wanted to do a couple of years ago but didn't really have the personnel. But I don't necessarily think they're going to end up going into next season with 5 centre backs. So I'm not sure. A lot may depend on who the holding midfielder is that arrives, because they've done a lot of work really on a double pivot this season. So if they then switched away from that to accommodate a 3 at the back, I don't know if I see that. But they should spend a bit more time in it on it in pre-season, and I think they will, because they'll get a proper pre-season, which they didn't really get this year. So I fully expected to see it being an option, but I don't see Daniel drifting away too much from the shape of a working side. What I really would like is him to have the shape of a working side, but then something they can switch to, because Premier League teams figure you out quite quickly. You have to evolve, at least in your approach, and you have to be quite savvy like that. They're the things that I'm really going to look for in terms of improvement next year, I must admit. But, thank you for the question as always, Stephen. And there's another one here. I asked for transfer ideas. I did. Madi Camara from Saint Etienne, Sheikh Doucouré from Lens, both young athletic centre mids, both probably 8-figure transfer fees, both proven in League One. Well, if they're both 8-figure transfer fees, they both won't happen. But we could see one. We know it's a crucial role. And I think Norwich had an athletic holding midfielder in Amadou last time, and just Daniel Farke wasn't having him. So that's the thing now. Really interesting thing, because ultimately the recruitment team can come up with the best kind of recruitment, but if Daniel's looking at them and going, I don't trust you, now that's a major issue. That has to be nailed down this time. They cannot recruit players who, Amadou's, whatever happened here, he's played at a decent level. So did it not settle? Did he not do enough? Where were the issues that Daniel saw with him? He played centre back, but he then gave him a couple of opportunities in central mid, and it just wasn't sticking. I remember the Southampton game away from home where he got, the first half an hour in midfield, but then everyone was playing so badly that he soon switched back into the back 3. And then Alex Tettey came on at half time, and that was it really. From that point on, it was just not going to happen. Now, whether that was down to Ibrahim, I don't know, but it didn't strike me that he was the sole issue for that performance in the first half. I thought Southampton were excellent. they're the things that have to be different this time. There has to be more accommodating in terms of the tools at his disposal, or that they're right and that he really, really trusts them from the start, especially replacing Ollie Skip, because Daniel Farke loved Ollie Skip. Cracking questions, but names noted, Stephen. I, to be honest, in terms of potential targets elsewhere, I'm going to bow to your knowledge there, because you've probably seen more of a football than I have. And likewise, I will always bow down to the recruitment team at Norwich City. They are physically proven and full-time scouters. They will know better than me who Norwich will want to recruit this year. And hopefully that groundwork will do at Norwich. And NCFC 1902, lovely handle there. Good afternoon to you. Good news about Webber and Farke seemingly being open to longer stays. How long do we think Daniel Farke's new contract might be? 3 or 4 years? Now, you see, yesterday was an interesting day. I think Norwich are in a situation in this window where they cannot afford people on the outside, and I don't class you guys as being on the outside. You're Norwich fans. I'm a Norwich reporter. You know, we're looking at it from a Norwich perspective. Beyond us, in the wider football world, I don't think Norwich can afford to go into this transfer window feeling, and the perception being, that both Stuart Webber and Daniel Farke could leave at the end of next season. Don't think it works, because you're trying to convince people to stay. So absolutely bang on that the message comes out, and I'm not arguing with the message that came out, that Daniel Farke will be open to and like to stay at Norwich City longer. And I think that's a great message for being out there, and it will probably happen. It will be a contract extension. I don't envisage it being a really long one, but we'll see. Maybe it will be. I don't know, is the honest answer. I felt Stuart Webber said nothing different to what I've heard him say, which is basically he intends to sign out on his contract. He's not going to leave the club in the lurch if it gets to that point where they, you know, still feel like they need him, and he feels like the project is in danger if he leaves. COVID is clearly a major impact on where he was when he signed the contract compared to now, because no one envisaged a global pandemic in the middle. That, I think, is what is the same. So yeah, it's never really been off the table, but it's kind of been a like, look, this is what I'm expecting to do. So that's that. And there's maybe the odd scenario I can see where Daniel Farke stays long beyond Stuart Webber, but I would say the vast majority of my head still sits in the camp that if Stuart leaves, I think it would take a lot for Daniel Farke to stay much beyond Stuart's departure, unless something happens that really, really convinces him from that point to stay. So that is my honest opinion on what this situation is. It's not there's going to be a 3 or 4 or 5 year deal. Daniel Farke's here forever, and that's basically 90% nailed on. And well, let's add a few years on Stuart Webber too. I just don't think that is. But I think it does Norwich the power of good to have that as the potential scenario dealing with this transfer window. So there you go. That's how I see it. And I might be proven completely wrong over the coming years, and maybe over the coming weeks. And I'm, willing to put myself forward for that. But my job is to analyze and call things as I see it, and that's how I see it. So there you go. Hope that helps, and I hope it doesn't dampen the situation. But I think it needs to be, there needs to be, a realism in terms of where everything is at the moment. William, good day to you, sir. Webb says that there will always be a place for Ollie Skip, but if Spurs take their time, surely it is in the club's best interest to bring someone in that position earlier. So yes, I tell you how I see this one as well. Effectively, if Oliver Skip is available for Norwich City to loan at any point during the coming transfer window, and they can pull it off, they will do it. That's how I see that. It will not stop them trying to recruit a couple of midfielders, I think. So they may have to just suck it and see. And if they've got 2 midfielders in the building and then Ollie Skip is available at 11:58 on deadline day, they'll do that as well, I reckon. So yeah, you're right, which I think is the right thing to do in a way. I think Ollie, if he becomes available and Norwich can guarantee the game time and Spurs are happy with that, which might be slightly more of an issue at that point, because Spurs might look at it and say, you've already got those 2 guys in. that might be more of an issue. But I think if Norwich can bring him in, and Daniel would love him, I mean, Daniel would probably play him. So I think that happens, but it doesn't happen in terms of the planning, as far as I see, at the expense of bringing in midfielders, which I think is crucial for the exact point you said, because Norwich can't just rely on that happening. And I think they know that with how difficult the Premier League was last time. So, yeah, it hangs in the balance with Ollie Skip. I still feel like Spurs may well try and do what's best for them ahead of what's best for Ollie, because I personally think Ollie may be able to just leap up to that level. But if Spurs are expecting to finish in the top 4 next season with a big-time manager, and they're relying on Ollie Skip to help them deliver that, that's a big ask for someone who has not played a minute, not played a lot. I can't remember if he has. Maybe he's played the odd minute, but his Premier League experience is minimal. Not saying he can't do it, because I can see a player who can really rise through levels and sort of take you by surprise in that way. But I do feel like the best avenue for Ollie would be to give him that time and experience of the Premier League at a level where he's going to play regularly. Now, whether that's Norwich or a different club comes in for him in the Premier League and then they do guarantee him every minute, then I don't know. But hopefully Norwich won't, and it sounds like they won't, get involved in waiting for him, and they will get on with their business, and then they'll deal with Ollie if that opportunity comes along. So that's good, because it's a clearly really important position for Norwich going forward in terms of how they deal with it. Keep on going. 10 more minutes. Let's see how many more of these we can get through. Jacob Robinson, very pleasantly surprised about the Farke contract and Webber's openness to staying. No, as I said, I think this is more managing the situation right now. I think these conversations are happening while Stuart sits his own mind. Stuart Webber, I feel like he's almost having a conversation with himself in terms of what he does. But it will come down to a conversation with the board eventually. And with Daniel, that is a filtered conversation with Stuart. I think if anyone's going to sort out Daniel Farke's contract, it will be Stuart Webber. Kalin Datsov, hope I've pronounced your name there correctly, Kalin. Hope you're well. What kind of players do you think we need? Norwich City need? I mean, I feel like they need a striker option. I feel like there's an element of being able to do that with a wider player who can play up top on their own. I think you have to kind of remember that Teemu Pukki was originally brought in to play in the 3 behind Jordan Rhodes as that kind of wider option and then forward influence. So I think if they can scout that kind of role, maybe more than the direct wide winger that say Anel Hernandez and Shemsvav Poeta are, then I think you've got that covered off. 2 central midfielders I think is vital. Certainly a top class defensive holding midfielder and a centre back with also a degree of wing fullback cover on both sides, because at the moment they've really only got 1 left back. If Max Aarons goes, they're going to need another right back, but if he doesn't, then at least they've got him. Bali Mumba then as cover, fair enough. And obviously Sam Byram, I really hope is good to go for next season. Does sound like there's positive signs of that has reached a point where come pre-season he can get going. So fingers crossed, because it's been a really difficult time for him. Absolutely. Alan Montgomery, good afternoon. Oh, what a cracking question this is. What's the best and worst part of writing for The Athletic? Whoa, what a question that is. Well, I love writing for The Athletic. I feel incredibly privileged to do the job. I feel like it gives me a great degree of freedom. I think the best part is that I can go, and if there's a real project that I want to do, I can go, throw myself into it, do it on my own, and away we go. And that's just a wonderful position to be in. I have so many great conversations with my editors and sub-editors who are checking all my work. So they help me you won't know who any of them are. Yeah, I can assure you, they all help me look much better than I am. So it's a proper team effort, and the team is of phenomenal high quality. And I mean, I sometimes feel like a complete imposter when I look at the quality of the colleagues that I write with. So I feel immensely proud to write for an organization like The Athletic, because they are brilliant. And I don't sit here saying subscribe to The Athletic because, I get paid to tell you to do it. I do it because I'm like, look at the quality on there. If you like reading about football and any other sports, look at it. It's amazing. And I feel, as I said, maybe an imposter at times, but incredibly privileged to add some Norwich City content to what they deliver. The worst bit, I suppose it's sometimes tricky trying to, write things that are behind a paywall when everyone else. So say yesterday was quite tricky. everyone else is doing it at the same time. Whereas we're speaking to Stuart Webber in different pockets, and news angles are coming out straight and left, and big old look at this is what's happening here, and this is what's happening with them, this is what happened there. And I find that's difficult to manage because I'm dealing more in the considered, well, let's be a bit more gray about, there's so many different shades and facets and thinking to what this is, rather than getting lost in headlines. And sometimes that goes against the sort of my upbringing of, but what about the newsline? What about the newsline? So that's sometimes curious, but it's not really a downside, I have to say. I love my job, and I hope you enjoy reading what I do. So thank you, Alan. That's a cracking question. Graham, I've answered it a little bit earlier ago, so give a rewind when this goes live. Darren Wilson, hello, Darren. Oh, by the way, I should say after that impassioned speech about The Athletic, that if you are yet to subscribe, go and have a look at theathletic.com/Norwich pod, because you may well find that that's the best way of signing up at the moment in terms of deals. Darren Wilson, here we go. I'm sure we're keeping our powder dry with signings, but no striker required. What do you think? Yeah, I think as I said, I think if you attach that to the wider option and you end up with someone like Teemu Pukki, which is essentially the sort of thing that they were doing. I suppose Teemu was probably a little bit more striker based, but if you can cover that off with that role of a wide player. So I'm not saying it's Arnaud Danjuma. I'm absolutely not. I love him as a player. I don't think Norwich would go there, and I don't even know if they could. But that kind of player who comes in off wide is a really good attacking threat coming inside, but also can play up top and go in behind. If that's the sort of player you can nail down, I think that could be really, really influential in terms of Norwich's shape. If you can get someone who's good enough at finishing, but also, a threat in a wider role. Adam Eder can do that as well. So again, how he fits in will be really interesting. But yeah, we will see with that one. That's how I see it. But it doesn't sound like they're going to go for an out-and-out striker option, which I found interesting when I caught wind of that. Winston, hello there. Who will be leaving, and more importantly, who can come in? I don't know the names. I'll know them when maybe they get close to happening, because people don't like talking about it when there's so many planes spinning and everything. Who will leave is a fascinating one, because I think we are at the point where Norwich's transfer budget changes dramatically if they make a big sale. So you have to then start thinking, is that in the best interests of the club if they can achieve that? Because you don't want to get later maybe, or to the January or afterwards, and you're like having to balance 2 or 3 who are going to have to leave, and you're having to do it in more desperate circumstances. So I can see that. So dependent on who comes in and who wants them. It does sound like Max Aarons is the one, mainly because they've had the transfer interest in the past, so it therefore becomes slightly easier to nail that in terms of the past interest and working back on it. And that's a platform, and you kind of sense that's coming. They haven't really had that past interest in Emi Buendia as much as we've all spoken about it a lot. If he does get an Argentina call up, which seems like it has a high potential of happening this summer, and he goes and plays and makes full, that takes Emi onto a different level and might well spark some different interest. So we'll have to see. I feel like those two are the two. And then it becomes a difficult situation with Todd, because he is out of contract at the end of the season after next. So you're getting into the last 2 years of the deal. So you're like, are we going to sign a new deal now then? And then it gets a bit muddy, and that would probably come after the window. So we would see. But there are a lot of unknowns, which is why I can't offer you a genuine answer, really. Read that the club will be open to offers for Anel, Stephen Hugo, Poeta. How many do you expect to leave? Seems to be less sentimental to promoted squads. Yes, James, I think that's really the way to read it. It's going to depend who wants them. I think you're talking about permanent departures, and some of those have worked. Some of them have kind of maybe come to the end of the road. It depends who's going to want them and that sort of stuff. But I think Norwich will be looking to have quite a tight-knit group next year. So I think that all focuses and sort of factors into that. And I guess there's a degree there of how many players have proven they can't do it in the Premier League, and how many players have proven to Daniel Farke that he can't make it work. And if you can't make it work in the Championship, the chances of him being maybe able to make it work in the Premier League is harder. I think with Shemek, it's really tricky, because as I've said a few times, I just look at the way he fits into that team, and I just don't believe his teammates look at him thinking, we know how to use you, or I just feel like he hasn't really got the buy-in from them. I think that's tough because he could be with Poland at the Euros this summer. So there we go. Nick, good evening. Good afternoon, Nick. If you had to place bets on how many of Aaron's, Buendia and Cantwell were at Norwich next season, what would you go for? Definitely one of them, potentially two. And I think that's probably the order in which they get sold, if that makes sense, as most likely to least. That would be my honest answer. But again, don't know. It's hard to say. Andy White, I am well, thank you very much. Hope you are too. How about putting Norwich a loan bid in for Josh Mayer, currently at Fulham, 22? Yes, indeed. I think that's a curious one, isn't it? I mean, I like him. I like what I've seen of him. But Norwich will have to play the loan card quite delicately, I think, just not to unstable the group. I think what they want is a strong group, and I think they'll want to make permanent signings. But whether they do it, because they've got to work out relegation budgets. If it happens, they have to prepare for that. And I think that is a tricky one when maybe other clubs don't bother. So, I mean, you know, Norwich are trying to do it their way and trying to protect the future of the club against clubs who don't give a crap, to be brutally honest. And they're like, oh, screw it, we'll be all right. And they've got people writing blank checks, even though maybe they've been hit really hard. So there is kind of a moralistic issue here of like, do you join them or do you go, screw this, we'll do it our own way? And that's why I feel quite philosophical about whatever happens in terms of bouncing between the divisions, as long as the long-term security of the club is all right. But it's such a difficult one. It's so hard, isn't it, to balance that off, I must admit. Anthony Balls, are we in dreamland if we sign Skip? Yeah, it would be really good. Did you see the montage on Twitter the club put out was just exceptional. You look at all the little things he's done this season. Just what a player, hey. What a player. I think it would be brilliant. But as I said, I feel like Spurs are going to try and keep hold of him as much as possible. So there we go. Share my year. Good day there, Simon. Can you see the club opting to sell Aarons in order to retain Buendia? Well, yeah, potentially. Like I said, I think if you don't want to lose more than one, but it's going to depend on the deals that come forward and how you play it out. And also, I think the recruitment team will look at things and feel like maybe they can make signings that actually suit Norwich better, potentially. But that's always a risk, obviously. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, if they're not under pressure to sell, because what they're saying is their budget will increase if they sell, but they're not under pressure to sell. So if their budget increases as one, and then another deal comes in that they're a bit umming and ahhing, if they've already sold one, they will be less inclined to sell the other, is what I would sense. But it may well depend on who the club is and how much people are offering. And also, Norwich are quite aware of if someone comes in really late, they would probably be like, well, where have you been all summer? And they're quite pragmatic like that. So it's going to depend on the dynamics of the moves, I think, and the interest they get and where it is and all that sort of stuff as well. Winston Amos was hoping for Lionel Messi. Well, don't rule it out. Can he play wide coming in off the... I mean, he's probably not quick enough. Just imagine it. Connor, I'll do this because you've said it. And it gives me a chance to read some of the other questions. Thank you. Last few minutes, because I do have to genuinely finish, but there we go. But I hope this has been good so far. Matty Lou, hello, Matty. He conceded that Aarons is probably off, so sell for 30 million plus and give Emmy anything he wants to stay. Well, yeah, potentially opens up the door for a new contract. But I think it's difficult because Emmy might not want to sign a new contract because he wants the progress that then Max would have presumably made by leaving. So it's a really difficult one, that, because you are at the point where the journey is stepping on. But I do think whoever goes, they leave with a 3 at the start minimum. And I don't think Norwich are going to pick the phone up unless that's the case. So there we go. Ryan, thank you. Would I rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or 100 duck-sized horses or a duck-sized, or do you mean a horse-sized duck? I think no weapons. Definitely the one. I think when you're being overwhelmed by lots, it becomes a lot harder. Sammy J, yeah. I mean, that didn't really convince me at Rotherham, so I was quite surprised when he went to West Brom. I don't know. I think there will be better options that aren't closer to home. Would be what I would rather go with. So there we go. I'm quite conscious of time. I must get on with this quicker at the start. That is going to be my new season resolution. So there we go. Interesting question, Graham. I don't know about that because I think Daniel is he is kind of a head coach. I think it would take a lot for him to move upstairs, because how would you deal with that, having dealt with, there's so much he doesn't do that he leaves to someone else. Whether when looking for Stuart's successor, someone that Daniel really likes comes in as a possibility. I wonder if that's an option beyond Stuart. I wonder if that is a different dynamic, and that Daniel Farke almost gets a say, if he's staying in a longer term, whether he gets a say on who the new sporting director is. That would be quite a power shift. So, it's a really complex issue. That's the way I'd maybe look at it. I'd be surprised if Daniel moved upstairs, but again, I'm literally giving you my opinion and hunch really in that position. So last few, thank you for so many questions. Maybe I should do these more regularly so that I get through all of your questions. I feel like I leave a lot of them out. So, I mean, these are phenomenal how many people are joining in. I'm a little bit overwhelmed, much like I am in most days of my job. Olive Middleton. Hello, Olive. It hasn't been asked already. Soto. Now, I think he's back in the US. He was here and training with the under 23s. So it seems a shame that he hasn't been involved. I would guess maybe it's a head clearer, come back in next season. And I wonder if they would probably try and get him a loan here, so they can monitor him closely and see how he does in England. I think feels like it might be quite a big summer for him. It feels like he needs a move now. He's had a spell at Norwich. He'll have seen what's going on here. He needs to get out and do something elsewhere, I think, and maybe show what he's got. So that would be something that maybe is worth keeping an eye on over the summer. Chris Hooper, is there anything to read into a nails tattoo? No, not necessarily, although I am quite conscious of that. So I don't know. It seems like a strange number to put on your tattoo if you were still staying. And there is obviously noise that he would be someone that Norwich would be willing to move on if it came along. So I think we'll have to see, won't we? But there we go. Well, in fairness, as James T has suggested, it's the years he won the league. So there we go. Maybe to put a plus sign in the middle. I don't know. This is the thing, isn't it? We all end up reading too much into it. Maybe he'll get to add in 2022 or 2023. I'll let you guess what I'm talking about there. Right. I think we're done. I've got to the end. I've missed out loads of your questions, but I thank you so much for all of your time and for getting in touch. I hope this filled the presser void ever so slightly. If you are yet to subscribe to The Athletic, theathletic.com/Norwich pod. We'll do this again. Keep an eye on my Twitter, and I'll try and give as much notice as possible as to when I'm doing them. In the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. No one told me what they were doing at the weekend, which I guess means A, you want to keep it to yourselves. Absolutely fine, by the way. And whatever it is, enjoy it. I might actually, people may have said, and I might have scripted through it all, so apologies for that. Have a brilliant time. I'll see you next week. Keep an eye on stuff on The Athletic. I've got some nice little pieces I am working hard on at the moment. So I hope you get to enjoy those. In the meantime, look after yourselves, your family, all of your loved ones, and I will see you very soon. With the aim of making seamless endings, I sign off now with the now customary weird music. Have a lovely weekend.